Thank you all for being here. We have a live audience and we have guests watching here via our YouTube channel. My name is John Stevenson. I'm Coordinator of Recruiting and Student Engagement here at Wallace State Community College. And we have our first live stream video of the fall semester 2020. First of many to come. So actually I was on the phone this morning with another corporation that we partner with here, and we're going to be doing some financial forums live coming up soon. And so be on the lookout for these upcoming live events that we will be broadcasting here from Wallace State Community College. We have today Miss Karis Snyder. Karis is a product of Wallace State Community College. Helps students, teachers, and business leaders to navigate through mental health challenges. She shares from her own experiences of overcoming depression, anxiety, to help other people of all ages learning to cope through skills and to thrive in their lives. I would like for you all to welcome with me Caris Snider. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for having me virtually and for joining me live as well. I'm excited to be here. I can tell you guys, as a speaker and a communicator, when all of that went away for the first several months of 2020, I realized that I took those things for granted. So to be in front of you all, to see faces, to even be here with you virtually, how it's challenged me and allowed me to grow, I'm just grateful for the opportunity. So I just want to thank you for that. We will be doing questions at the end, so if you're watching us virtually and you want to put your question in, you can go ahead and do that. Or if you have questions here as well, face to face, I would love to answer those questions. I'll also tell you, just in my own journey with mental health, I know that many times I had questions, but I was often scared to ask them in front of others. So if you have questions and you don't really want to ask in front of others, I'll be right outside the doors here at the tables that you can ask me questions there. Or if you want to reach out and find me on social media, I would love to chat with you there, because I think it's very important. And the message that, as I was praying and preparing to share with you all today, is 4 words. And those 4 words are, you are not alone. You are not alone. And as that message continued to just go over and over in my head, as a parent, as a professional, and many of you watching today, you are students, you're professors, you are your parents as well. You may feel as though you are alone. You may feel that you are the only one dealing with anxiety, dealing with the questions that you have in your mind with everything that is happening with 2020. I mean, if you don't have questions about what is happening with 2020, I need to talk to you, because maybe you can give me some direction. But I did want to share just a little bit about myself with you all. It's so funny, even as I was talking with John, how we have connections. He knows my older brother. I've known Christy with Campus Ministries my whole life. I feel like I've known her. I grew up going to church with her, and many of you who work here at Wallace State, I know you. I have connections with you through our children, or just as I've gotten to know you through different avenues. But I am not originally from Coleman. I am from a small town called Corner, Alabama. If you know about Corner, you can type in the chat box there. Maybe some of you guys know about Corner. If you know Green Top, does anybody know Green Top? Yes. All right, there we go. I knew we could relate on the barbecue right there. My parents live less than a mile from Green Top, so whenever I go home, I always love to get some good Green Top. Can never go wrong with barbecue in the South. But I grew up in Corner. I got a child development degree from the University of Alabama. And then my husband and I, we met through college, through those avenues. He was actually in a Christian boy band, which if you want to know about that later, you can ask me about that later. But we moved to Arab through his job, and then we moved here to Coleman in 2011. I love it here. I have 2 daughters. I have a daughter in 6th grade and a daughter in 2nd grade. We also have a fur child. If you have a dog, you understand. He thinks that he is half human, and we we probably treat him that way, but we love it here. We love living here in Coleman. I love Wallace State. I love what this college does for our community. I love what it offers for students, and I just love living where we are. But not only is that a part of my story, but I also want you to know that I am a survivor and overcomer of anxiety and depression. They are very, very real. In fact, depression worldwide, these numbers are going to be pre-COVID. Depression affects over 264 million adults worldwide, and they consider adults 18 and up, 264 million. Anxiety affects 300 million adults worldwide. And again, these numbers are all pre-COVID, and now you can go back through their gathering numbers, they're gathering research, even the help hotlines, the suicide lines, those calls have gone up drastically, almost 300%. These are real issues affecting real people, and they make you feel as though you are alone, but you are not alone. With anxiety, it's typically a generalized anxiety disorder. You feel anxious most days. You struggle to remember. Maybe you can't remember the last time you were relaxed. I don't know when the last time was that I was a relaxed person, but when that anxiety is taking over in you, that's what you feel oftentimes. For it to be a disorder, it generally goes about 5 to 6 months or longer. So how long have we been in our pandemic? We've been there for about 6 months. So if you are feeling these things, you are not alone. Anxiety disorders are actually the most common mental illness in the United States. 40 million adults in the United States. One out of every five have dealt with some form of anxiety or will deal with some form of anxiety. And anxiety is not a new thing. This has been around since the beginning of time. Robert Burton, he wrote this description in The Anatomy of Melancholy in the year of 1621, and he was referring to a patient of Hippocrates. And if you have dealt with anxiety or an anxiety attack in any way, you are going to understand what he says. Even though this language is a little bit different than what we may say now, you'll still understand this verbiage. He says, "He dare not come into company for fear he should be misused, disgraced, overshoot himself in gestures or speeches, or be sick. He thinks every man observeth him." And I think about that song, I always feel like somebody's watching me. If you deal with anxiety, you feel like people are watching you. You're always on edge. You may feel sick. You may feel nauseous. So again, back in the 1600s, they were describing exactly what many of us have dealt with. So now let's take this and let's look at college. You may be watching this today. We have some students sitting here with us today. So let's look at this from your perspective, because your perspective may be different than mine as an adult that's a parent right now and in the workforce. According to research, this is according to the American College Health Association. In the fall of 2018, 63% of students, 63% felt overwhelming anxiety. That's over half of college students felt overwhelming anxiety. And only 23% of them reported to go and get help, to go and talk to someone to deal with what they were going through. The sharpest increase of anxiety that college students will typically see is in that transition year, that first year as you move from high school to college. Because it's completely different. It's different than what you've been around. It's different than what you've known your whole life. So if you are a student watching this, anxiety and depression are very real. It's very real. And you are not alone. So very quickly, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about a little girl who was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. If you are a music fan, you may know that Elvis Presley was also born in Tupelo, Mississippi. If you're ever in a trivia game, that may be a good one for you to know. But this little girl was born in Tupelo, Mississippi, and she was born with a mild form of cerebral palsy in her left side. And what this did to the left side of her body is it made her muscles very weak. Her foot was turned inward, and she walked with a limp. But she had no idea that she was any different than anyone else. Her parents never treated her any differently. Her brothers never treated her any differently. Her friends never treated her any differently. And then one day, all of that changed. And when this little girl went into her first grade class, a friend of hers who actually grew up in her same neighborhood, he played baseball with her brother and even went to church with her. He gathered their first grade class around her, and he looked at her and he said, "Why do you walk like that? Why do you hold your arm up like that? You look like a bunny rabbit." And he began to hop around her like a bunny rabbit with both arms up, making fun of her. And that entire first grade class was laughing at her. And she joined in with the laughter to hide the tears. She didn't want them to see the pain of the rejection that she felt. She didn't want them to see the embarrassment and the shame that she felt at 6 years old. So when she got home to her mom and dad, instead of telling them, instead of letting them know what happened, she learned early on to begin to hide. She hid the rejection, she hid the pain, and instead she began to build walls around herself. She began to deal with the pain by avoiding it. And she began to deal with the pain by avoiding rejection, by avoiding her weaknesses, not wanting to be a failure in front of anyone. And early on in her life, she put this need to be perfect, this need to have it all together so that she wouldn't go through that rejection or shame again. So we move forward to her life when she's in 5th grade. And she is at the top of her class. She is excelling in academics because she knew that she could hide behind that. She didn't have to deal with all the different pain that she was feeling. And she began to be bullied by another little boy. And this little boy would follow her around. He would make fun of her accent. He would make fun of every one of her answers. He would make fun of anything that she said or anything that she did. And as she would go home at night, she didn't tell teachers, didn't tell parents. And she would lie in her bed at night, heart racing, not knowing what was going on. She began to have headaches. She began to just feel nervous. Her palms would feel sweaty. But she didn't tell anybody because she thought she was the only one. And so one day she woke up and she had such a bad migraine that her peripheral vision was gone. She could look straight ahead, but she could not see to the right or to the left of her. And so when that happened, she was scared because she thought, man, I'm going blind, something is happening. So she had to tell her parents. She finally had to say what was going on. So she told her mom and her dad what was happening. She told them about what was happening with her vision. And they went to the doctor, and the doctor began to ask her some questions. And he said to her, "Is someone bullying you?" And she began to cry. She began to cry. Her parents were shocked because they had no idea that this was happening in her life. And so she answered his questions and she said yes, and she began to tell him what would happen. And the amazing thing is that as she released that information, as she let it go, her peripheral vision came back. The headache went away. And he began to talk to this little girl and her parents about something called anxiety. And he said, what you are experiencing is anxiety. And he didn't really go into any information of how to deal with it and how to work through it. He just kind of gave it a label. And that gave that little girl and those parents some relief to know what was happening. Well, that little girl was me. And growing up that way, growing up with a loving family, with loving parents, with friends around me, I still struggled. I wanted to hide my hurts. I wanted to hide these fears that I was going through because I truly thought I was alone. And then even going on in through high school, I was still striving for perfection, striving to get in front of my weaknesses, get in front of my critics, if you will, so that they couldn't reject me, so they couldn't point out all these things that were wrong with me. And in 12th grade, it all caught up with me. The pressure caught up with me. And as I was riding to school with my twin brother, he was driving. He said I was not a good driver. I don't know what that was about. He hit a bump in the road, and I had orange juice. I was drinking orange juice that morning. And you guys know, when you're in high school, you care about your outfit, right? You work hard. When you get to college, you don't care about your outfits. You get up and you roll out of the bed in your pajamas, especially right now. I mean, if you're doing your Zoom calls, you're doing your videos, but in high school you care. So I worked hard on that outfit, and so when that orange juice went everywhere, I just, as we say in the South, had a complete come apart. And we got to the school and he went on into class and I went home. And it all just overtook me. The anxiety overtook me, the emotion overtook me, and I isolated myself away. my older brother came in, and he actually came after school, and he drove me around, and he talked to me, and he made me share what was going on in my life and in my heart, because he wanted me to know, you're not alone. And I will continue to say that because someone who is watching, you need to know you are not alone. And then on into college, in that freshman year, you're scared, it's new, it's uncertain, it's changing. You're around people that you've never been around before. In that first semester of college, dealing with professors, some of them wanted their class to be hard. They wanted it to be difficult for you. And going from being one who tutors other students to pass classes to needing a tutor to pass classes, that was difficult on me in college. Still didn't share, didn't tell all these things, because honestly, throughout my life, from about high school, college, and into my adult years, I did not think anxiety or depression were real. And when those would come to me for encouragement or for guidance with those things, I would look at them and I would say, well, you just need to try harder. You just need to work harder. You just need to do more. My favorite would often be, well, you just need to suck it up, Buttercup. No compassion. No heart. But then as an adult, I began to realize just how real anxiety was. And in 2011, I began to suffer severe anxiety attacks. And maybe you're dealing with some of these symptoms right now. It would be things like a pounding heart. My heart would feel like it was beating out of my chest. It felt like elephants were sitting on my chest, and as hard as I pushed, I just could not get that weight off of me. I would feel like I was sweating all the time. I felt like I was trembling all the time. Shortness of breath. I could never get good breath. Nausea is also associated with anxiety. You're dizzy. You have headaches. You feel numb. You feel tired. You feel like you can't sleep. All of these things were happening, but I never thought anxiety was real, so I ignored all of these things. I was trying to numb the pain as well. I would isolate myself. Maybe you find yourself in isolation. College is a great time of your life. It's fun, but college students oftentimes are very lonely. They're away from their family, they're away from their friends, and now in this time that we are in, where social activities are pulled back, or the rules are changed a little bit, it's hard to navigate your way. And isolation is a friend of anxiety, and isolation can bring depression with it. And with depression, you feel worthless, hopeless, useless, and purposeless. And that's where I found myself in the rock bottom moment with anxiety and depression, heaping its shame upon me, heaping those emotions upon me, taking me captive, not allowing me to live my life the way that I wanted to live it, feeling as though I was not needed here on this earth and that everyone would be better off without me. And in that rock bottom moment, I was presented with two options. You can look up or you can give up. And I thank God every day that He helped me to look up. In Psalms chapter 40, verse 1, 2 and 3, it says, I waited patiently for the Lord, and He inclined to me, and He heard my cry, and He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and the mire, and He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord. God inclined to me, and He leaned down into me, into that pit, and He pulled me out. And you may be in that pit today, and you may be saying, do I look up or do I give up? And I want to encourage you to look up. Look up, because you are not alone. And you're here on this earth for a reason, and for such a time as this. It baffles my mind to think that God chose us to be alive right now. He chose you, and He chose me. And He has a hope, and He has a plan for you. So what were some things that helped me through that? Because you see, maybe you're trying to figure out, how do I get through this? And you can get through it. There is that hope today. Some things that helped me were a counselor. I sought help. I got a counselor. And here at Wallace State, you have amazing counselors. You have amazing teachers who want to help you. My doctor helped me and guided me through that and helped me to see that if I was having heart disease, high blood pressure, if I was a diabetic, I would get help. I would seek doctor's help for that. Well, there was chemical imbalances going on in my brain that needed help from a doctor. So a doctor helped me. Getting into my Bible and reading and praying, those things helped me. Turning to my faith were helpful. And my community. Having my tribe, my friends around me, whether it's 2 or 3 good friends, or maybe you have lots of good friends, letting them into my life, letting them into those struggles to know what was going on in my life was powerful, because this is what I found. As I shared with my community, as I told them what was going on, many of them would look at me and they would say, "You too?" And I would say, "Yes, me too." And we knew we were not alone. Well, there was also some practical things that helped me, and I want to give you these practical tips today. First of all was to avoid avoidance. Oftentimes with anxiety, we want to avoid it. We want to pretend like it's not there. We want to pretend like it's not happening. But that is the last thing that we need to do. We need to acknowledge its presence, because as we know what our starting point is, when we know that anxiety is there and we admit it, then we know how to go forward. Then we know, okay, now I can deal with this, now I can move forward. And it is okay to feel what you're feeling. It is 100% okay, because you know what? Everything is up in the air right now. Everything is uncertain. Everybody is feeling it. Everybody is feeling overwhelmed. And I love that even Jesus gave us the example when he went to the Garden of Gethsemane. This is in Mark chapter 14, verses 33 and 34. He admitted, he looked at his disciples and he said, "My soul is overwhelmed." He was honest. So we want to avoid avoidance. We want to be honest, and we want to admit, hey, this anxiety, this is legit. This is real. And it's got a hold of me. Second, another practical thing you can do is deep breathing and grounding. What happens with anxiety and your brain, and this is another whole other topic that I would go into for a whole nother day. Your brain, its job is to protect you and keep you alive. And what happens with that fight or flight mode that we have in a part of our brain called the amygdala, it will respond to an actual threat and the thought of a threat in the same way. So if you're in a dangerous situation, your brain is going to do fight or flight, right? If there's a car running at you and about to hit you, that fight or flight mode kicks in. And it gets you out of the way. Well, the thought of a threat, the thought of a car coming at you, the thought of an elevator falling, right, uncontrollably, just that thought, your brain kicks in the same way, sends the same chemicals, the same reaction, because it wants to protect you. But when it's anxiety, and that kicks in at not the right time, or it kicks in and it stays on, that switch does not turn off. And it begins to keep you from being able to live your daily life, those daily activities. That's when it becomes a problem. So when you take those deep breaths, it moves you out of that emotional part of your brain into the thinking part of your brain, where you can think calmly, you can think rationally, and then you're back in control. Those emotions are not back in control, but you're back in control, and you know, I'm safe and I'm okay. Another thing you can do is to move out of the what if and move into what is. Oftentimes, and the majority of the time with anxiety, it is an anticipated threat. What if this happens? What if that happens? And we go into catastrophe mode. I am a master at catastrophe mode. And oftentimes we do this because anxiety makes you want to control, wants to control everything, wants to control the future, wants to control the outcome. And in reality, you can't control everything. You're not supposed to be in control of everything. So if we move out of that what if and move into what is, well, what is some things you can control? Decide that in your schedule, in your routine. You can control your routine. You can control what you're doing every day. So you want to find those things that you can control. And then even control your thoughts and think on things that are good. Think on things that are true, that are excellent. Choose to shift in that way. So move from what if to what is. Another great one is to have an attitude of gratitude. Gratitude is a natural anxiety blocker. When you are purposefully thinking about what am I thankful for, your brain cannot think about anxiety and gratitude at the same time. So when you feel that anxiety begin to try to take over, start to think about what am I thankful for? Young children are great at this. College students, high school students, they're so good at this. They can get specific with it, and they can get so funny with it. I did this at a high school, and they were like, I'm thankful for my four-wheeler, and I'm thankful for my black cat, and I'm thankful for my dog, Scruffy, and they just start laughing and start thinking about these things, and you'll notice your body language shifts. You notice you calm down as you realize you do have things to be thankful for in your life. Another one is to do a media distance. Your brain needs a break. And oftentimes we're scrolling social media or we're scrolling the web and we're looking at everything, and your brain needs a break. So take a break, step away from social media, step away from internet, and take a walk. Or rest, or just chill out, or maybe go with a friend somewhere and get outside. Give your brain that break. Put some margin in your life. Just as in a book, if you read a book, you'll notice there is white space around the words. The words do not go from right to left, up to down on every page, because you need a break to process what you're reading. So your life, your brain needs a break as well. And finally, another practical way to help you with your anxiety, your community. I know right now that with your community, it's difficult to find ways to get together physically, but brainstorm, get creative. Is it where you can get together and have coffee with one another? Can you do Zoom calls once a week? Is there a show that you guys watch together that you can talk and laugh over? Because by having that community, you see that others are there with you and they're not rejecting you. They're not turning their back on you, but they're walking through the journey with you. I saw this video clip on the internet not too long ago, and there was a young little girl. She was 2 years old. She had her ballet. It was her big ballet concert, her recital, and they had practiced and they got up on that stage, and when they got up there, it was overwhelming. The lights, the music, the people, the applause, the laughter as all the little ones went on the stage, and she began to cry. She was not having it. If you've been around 2-year-olds and they're starting to have a fit, you can forget it. You can hang it up. It's not going to work. The teacher was trying so hard to help her to just do the motions, to go through it, and she was not having it. Well, all of a sudden, you see this big, muscular man walk on the stage. And it was her father. And he didn't rescue her from the situation. He didn't swoop her up and take her off the stage. With a baby in his hand, he took her hand and he began to go through the motions of the dance with her. He did the dance with her. And you began to see this little girl, as she was crying and screaming, look up at her daddy, and she stopped. And she began to do the motions that he was doing. And then you began to see her become more confident. You began to see her know the dance and do the motions and even try to show her dad the right way to do the motions. And he was laughing with her, and she kept going through the dance, and they finished the dance. And this is how I see God with us right now in this pandemic. I want him to just swoop it all away and say, okay, let's be done with it. But instead, he has taken us by the hand. And he is saying, I'm going through the motions with you. I'm going to show you the way. I'm going to give you the next step, and I'm not leaving you. Isaiah 41:10 says, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Just as that father grabbed his daughter's hand, God is grabbing your hand, and he is saying, you're not alone, and you're going to make it through this. And when we make it through this, we're going to be stronger. We're going to be more resilient, and we're going to be able to take what we've learned as we've gone through this season, and we're going to be able to help others. And they're going to help others, and it'll be a domino effect. So I hope that this was helpful for you today to learn about kind of what anxiety is, maybe hear about some symptoms of what it sounds like, and to hear some practical ways to deal with the anxiety, to move forward, and to know you're not alone. So thank you guys for allowing me to be here. And like I said, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take this time to answer them. Oh.
Any questions?
Okay.
Anybody have any questions?
Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Karis. That was awesome to hear a topic that so many individuals experience. And so thank you all for watching live. And please do us a favor here at Wallace State. If you've witnessed this live event today, please share it on your social media platforms. Karis actually contacted me about this engagement event, we really didn't know where we were going to actually strategically place this event. Every time we would try to book something, something would be a roadblock in the way. But there's always a purpose and plan for events to take place. And I believe that the higher powers above had a purpose and plan. And I think this is an important time for all of us to hear this topic and experience this event. So thank you. Before we close out, if you do have any questions, please post those in the chat box, or if any of you all here watching today live have any questions, please raise your hand. Be more than happy to have Karis come back up. But I'd like to thank our Wallace State Community College communications team. We have several members here today. Miss Gail, thank you. Russell Moore was actually in the building. He's just now stepped out. And then Jesse Cobb, he's the brains behind this machine here today, putting all this out on our social media pages and doing this live stream. So thank you, Jesse, for all your hard work. A lot of these individuals, you see their work, but you really don't get to see the face or the name behind the work. So we really do appreciate. I appreciate you because I ask a lot out of you. I know at my two areas here with recruiting and student engagement. And then lastly, every student engagement event we have here at Wallace, we always try to incorporate a student organization. And I believe one of our strongest organizations here on campus is our campus ministries. We have a great leader in that group of young men and women here to represent Wallace State, and that's Miss Christy Hicks. So I would like for Miss Christy Hicks to come up and just show her face and kind of give you guys some information on our campus ministries as we close out. Once again, I'm John Stevenson, Coordinator of Recruiting and Student Engagement, and we really do appreciate you here. We want to invite you to come on campus for a campus tour if you're a prospective student, or if you're alumni, please get tied into our alumni relations with Suzanne Harbin. And then if you're just overall supporter of Wallace State, just please share this event. We have more to come, as I stated in the beginning of this program. We have a lot more to come on this kind of platform as we're experiencing these social distance guidelines. So anyway, without further ado, Ms. Christy Hicks to close us out.
2 questions.
Oh, we have 2 questions? Okay, Karis.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I know for some, you want alternatives for how you deal with that. So a couple of things that we had already mentioned, the deep breathing. If you can, when you feel that anxiety coming on, if you can learn to just pause and stop and acknowledge that it's there, and then just take those deep breaths in for about 4 seconds and then 4 seconds out, and do that over and over. That will help you. There's another thing that you can do. It's called grounding. When you do grounding, you begin to look at, well, what can I touch with my hands? Where are my feet standing? What can I smell? What can I hear? By doing that, it pulls you out of that futuristic mode that you're in and back into your reality, what you're in at that moment. And another effective thing for many with anxiety is journaling, where you write down the thoughts that you have as quickly as you can, and you just get those thoughts out, because then they're not taking over your brain, taking over that mental space. And when you get out those negative things, what helped me was to replace it with positive thoughts, positive affirmation statements. Scripture was also a helpful thing for me, or just even looking around and seeing what I could be grateful for, those gratitude things. Those type things there, those 3 things, if you could put those things into your life, into your daily routine, and it is a process, so it takes you time to practice it, but if you can do those things, they were helpful for me, so you may find that they were helpful for you.
Was there another question? There was one more question?
I think so, if I can get it. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
And I will say, too, that here at Wallace State, we offer a counseling service free to our students. That's Mr. David Smith. He's with Wellstone. He is located on the 3rd floor of Bailey Building, the building that we're currently in right now. 3rd floor, Mr. David Smith. His number is actually, it's office 306. Office 306 here in Bailey. That's Mr. David Smith, and he's a licensed counselor. So if you find yourself needing any counseling services, that is free of charge to Wallace students. So take advantage of that. And so as we're waiting on the last question, I'm going to hand this over to Christy Hicks so we can wrap up. But like I said, Miss Christy Hicks is over our campus ministries here at Wallace State, and she's going to close out with some important information about that student organization. So thank you.
Thank you, Karis, for sharing today. I believe I have known you all your life, pretty much. I'm so glad to be with you here today. I'm Christy, as John already said, Christy Hicks with Campus Ministries. I've been here 19 years doing campus ministries. Obviously, I love Wallace State. I love our staff. I love our students. And just as Karis shared today, you are not alone. There are plenty here at Wallace State that will walk alongside of you. And if you feel like you need a group to connect with, Campus Ministries is your group. We have a group of students who are so welcoming. Any new student, they bring right on in, make part of the group, and they're there to encourage you. And I think these friendships that you make in college are ones that will last a lifetime. I'm still in touch with students that I was friends with when I was in college and part of a Campus Ministries group. So if you're looking for a group to be part of where you can feel encouraged, you may think, I just don't know if I fit in. You'll fit in, believe me. We have a very diverse group of students, and they love each other, and they work together for a common purpose. And I'm very thankful for all of them who are sitting here and who had to go to class. I'll tell you this, on Thursdays this semester, we're a little slow this semester because of gatherings with students, but we do have a small group that we're offering on Thursdays at 1:30. It will progress through the entire semester, and you are welcome to join us every Thursday at 1:30, and we're studying apologetics. You may say, what in the world's apologetics? What is that big word? Is it an apology? It's learning how to stand for your faith, defend your faith. So if you'd like to join us, connect with me. My phone number, I'll give you my cell because that's the best way to get with me, is my Campus Ministries number. It's 256-338-4468. That's 256-338-4468. And if you want to connect later through social media with Karis, you can still get in touch with me, and I'll put you in touch with Karis if you have further questions. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Karis. We've got one more question, so I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, this last question, I won't read all of it, but this talks a lot about having meltdowns into social events. And I know that that is a really big thing for you guys right now, to go to a social event, to plan, to prepare to go to one, and then you get nervous, you freak out, and then you don't go. And then you are upset, you beat yourself up, and so the question is, what are some quick tips to help me through those meltdowns? And what I'll tell you, social anxiety, it's a real thing, which deserves a whole more than just what I can give you here. So whoever asked this question, if you want to reach out to me personally, I would love to talk to you about this. It is a real thing. It is very nerve-wracking to walk into a social event on your own. If you're late or if you're too early, are they going to accept me? You have all these questions. So some things that may help you with a social event is do not go alone. Don't go alone. Take a friend with you. If you know of a friend that has been invited, either go together and ride together to the event, or Ask them to meet you there. Maybe you like to be in control, you want to have your own vehicle, so you can meet them there. So invite a friend, or know if a friend is going, ask them to wait on you to go in. Another thing that you can do to, again, we don't want to avoid these things, but to take small steps, is that if the event starts from 7 to 9 p.m., give yourself a goal and say, I'm going to stay for 30 minutes. And if you stay for 30 minutes and you're still good, then say, okay, I'm going to stay another 15 minutes. So just take it in small doses. Don't feel like you have to stay the whole time. And then if there are lots of social events that are happening, that are going on, you're not going to be able to make all of them. So don't put that pressure on yourself. No is a complete sentence. It is. It's a complete sentence. So just pick a couple of social events that you want to go to and start small. And so some of those things, those are quick tips just to help you. That'll help you go through that. Yes?
Someone asked, how do you help someone else who has anxiety and depression? What would you recommend?
That is a great question. The question was, how do you help someone else who is dealing with anxiety and depression? First, I would like to tell you thank you for being concerned about friends or family members. And the next I would like to tell you is to take the pressure off of yourself to fix them, because you can't fix them. And they don't want you to fix them, but what they want to know is that you accept them where they're at, that you're going to be their friend, that you're going to love them even though they're going through a hard time. So even if you don't have all the answers, you're not supposed to. And they're okay with you not having all the answers. And even if you look at them and say, I don't understand what you're going through, but I'm here for you, that is a powerful statement. So just by letting them know that you are there for them, that will be very helpful for them. And if you ever get a check in your spirit and you're like, man, I wonder how so-and-so's doing, reach out and ask and say, hey, I had you on my mind today, just wanted to see how you were doing. If they know that you're there for them and they know that you're going to be there for them once they get through what they're going through, that is huge, because anxiety oftentimes makes you feel like no one's going to be there. It makes you feel like you're alone. So just by letting them know you're there, even though you don't have all the answers, that gives them comfort. So I would just encourage you to just walk through it with them, be there for them, take the pressure off of yourself to fix it. And I would even say to you, encourage them. I know John has mentioned this. I mentioned this a little bit in my own story. Encourage them to go to a counselor. Counseling was life-saving for me. And even if you say to them, I'll go with you, that'll give them the courage to go. It just helps to talk to someone and to get all those things out and to know that in that counseling session, there is zero judgment. It is a safe place and a confidential place to share. That is huge as well. So if you give that encouragement, that may help them to walk through that part of their journey. So thank you for that question. Any others? That was a great question. And like I said, if you continue to have questions, you can find me on social media at Karis Snyder. It's very easy. I would love to stay in contact with you guys. Again, it just helps to know that somebody has been through what you've been through, but they got on the other side. And so when you can talk to them through that, talk to them through those issues, it's just helpful. So I always want to let students know, adults know, reach out. Ask. Don't be afraid to ask, and just know that I'm happy to continue to walk through this journey with you. Good. All right. Thank you guys so much for allowing me again to be here today and to be a part of this event. And I hope everybody has a fabulous rest of your day.